I gotta go grab the water.
All right, good evening. We will begin our work session tonight, and the topic of this evening is our long-term facilities master plan update. Mr. Supple.
Thanks, Mrs. Cope. I'm happy to introduce tonight. I think many of you have already met them, but Mr. Mark Ruther, who's a principal at Honer Associates, our architect, and Wade Welch. They've both done fantastic work for us over a number of years, and they're spearheading the effort for our long-term planning. We provided you with an executive summary and then a sample report of the work that's going to be produced for each of our buildings. And tonight, Mr. Ruther is going to go through a presentation, and then we'll have an opportunity for the board to ask questions. So, Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, and appreciate the opportunity to be here and update you on what we've been doing for the past 5 to 6 months. So there's going to be a lot of information here. What we're trying to do is just give you some examples of what we've been doing the past 6 months. And what we have been doing is really compiling a lot of information at this point. But I'm going to go through it, and then maybe give me 15 minutes or so, I'll get through it. And if there's any questions, we can then kind of spearhead and talk about it amongst ourselves. But as Kevin had indicated, Wade has been working on all the day-to-day of each school, and spent some countless nights working on the plan. So we're excited to present it. We think we're in really good shape, but this is just to kind of give you what we've been doing. So just to, did I?
Not that one.
There you go. First step, push the right button. First thing here, just like I had already talked, we just give you an introduction of how the binders, and what we've done is we've broken them up between 3 different binders. One is an executive summary. There'll be varying degrees of information that we'll pass along to you. So tonight is really just to kind of give you, they're broken down into general building of the campus information of each one of the campuses, a life cycle replacement program, and then also the building overall information of each one of those campuses. So with 27 facilities that we've been working through, obviously it just keeps growing, and you can see the magnitude of the information that we're going to present to you. The goal of the master plan is to basically provide you a roadmap. You know, what's the district's roadmap as we move forward? And one of the main goals is to create safe, and high quality atmospheres for the teachers at the facilities, and then also to maintain the state-of-the-art facilities. That's probably one of the more important things. But as we do this, we want to be looking forward to what do we need to be doing as we move ahead to maintain these facilities moving forward. And one other thing I would like to put in here is that as we go through this, we're going to say it an awful lot of times that we're looking at this as a fluid document, because we might have some priorities this first year or second year, but there's nothing to say that things may not change, and they may elevate to the top depending upon a roof or something like that. But it's a guide, it's a roadmap so that you can move along. The way the major categories of the document's broken down is to start with student and staff security, and we'll get into some of the details of one of the campuses, and then improve the campus building circulation at each one of the campuses, and to look at it as a site plan, and then at the building. What do we do to improve that circulation throughout each one of the campuses? And then obviously there's going to be different different opportunities. There's going to be different times where you're going to be needing to add space to each one of those campuses. We're going to look at that as well. The process that basically we went through as we got into it, it was pretty laborious as we get into the first stages. Is, we had worked on the high school, the Francis Hall High School, and obviously we had the drawings for that. But each one of the campuses, we needed to go through the drawings, and we need to compile each one of the campuses have all the various additions that happened over the past 10, 20 years or whatever. So we've developed and we've put together all the plans, so now we have, for the most part, good backgrounds of each one of the campuses. So we had to do that. We also went out and did some field work, and we will continue to do additional field work on some of the campuses that we need to refine even further. And then we get into the building analysis, as we kind of talked about earlier, but we'll also engage in that a little bit further. So then the second step is to take that information and then start looking at the life cycle replacement cost of each one of those roofs and parking, whatever, but look at the life cycle cost of each one of those. And then also confirm the existing conditions from the existing drawings and what's there and what we're going to be adding on to. And then also then insert the projected enrollment levels of each one of those campuses depending upon the growth in that particular area of the district. Here's kind of a how we started to look at the prioritization of each one of the campuses. So we look at going from 1 to 20 years and beyond, but it's the immediate needs is priority 1, being 1 to 2 years. Basically, look at that as basically as soon as possible, because by the time you start to engage, 2 years is going to go by. So those are the immediate needs that we're looking at. Then you've got the 5 to 10 year estimate at the mid-level. The priority 3 is the 10 to 20, and then there's long range in the future growth. So we wanted to kind of start there because this color code is how really everything in the document starts to pull together. And as you start to see these things on each one of the campus, we'll start to engage in this color code on each one of the campuses. And again, I just want to say it again, it's a fluid document. Every step of the way there'll be things, but what we want to be able to do is at least put something in the board's head that maybe we don't know exactly what went on there, but we wanted an addition, and we at least have an idea of where that addition might go, so that you have at least a process of starting point. And this is one sample of the big document of a lot of the different schools. We just wanted to walk you through how we started to set this up on the in the prioritization of the master plan. So you can see we've got the multiple colors, and then we have the first priority. When you look at, you've got the proposed scope of work in the first area, the priorities that are also broken down between the colors, and then you also have the estimated completion of those in the colors, and then the estimated cost. So as we go through this, you'll start to see that if you're needing to know after a certain year what is the total cost for priority 1, you'll have that cost along with priority 2. So it's a running total down at the bottom. And obviously all these costs are going to come in. The first time you're going to see it, you're just going to be like, wow, but it's a starting point. So we can start prioritizing, and you have a document then to be able to start looking at. Then obviously the next phase, the yellow, is the 5 to 10. And then we have the roof the next at the 10 to 20. And then the classroom, or the additional classrooms or long-term future growth throughout the district. So that's really what a lot of this stems from, are these types of the color and the breakdown. So each one of these, this is a sample. And then here is this really came prior to it, but we had to look at the site plan and the floor plans in order to be able to kind of put together a process and how we were planning for it. So this is an example here that just to kind of prove what you're doing is really well worth it. This is, again, it's a one example of Becky David Elementary School. Let's say down the road you're told we need 2, 3, 4, 6 a classroom addition, and you haven't done a loop road at that point in time. You pull the trigger and you do some additions where you can kind of see if you hadn't planned for that loop road, you've basically spent an exorbitant amount of money to build additions before you actually planned for the site and how you might want to do the loop road down the road. So it gives you, again, that roadmap so that you're trying to prevent from doing something premature before being actually thinking about their overall plan and the site. So we look at the floor plan, basically, to start with, where the additions may go. We looked at, for the most part, 6 to 10 classrooms. That doesn't mean every campus is going to get that, but we wanted to at least have an idea of where that many classrooms would go if you needed to have that. Then the other thing is to look at the master plan and what are the immediate needs on the site as far as site circulation. Obviously, the site circulation is going to be a critical thing for future growth and things of that nature, for pickup and drop off as the district, or in some cases just to fix needs to get cars off the roads at each one of the campuses. So each campus might have a different varying degree of needs, but this gives you that roadmap again. Again, then the floor plan. Again, it's tied to that color code as far as where you would do the building addition, and that would be illustrated with the bubble. And then again, the next thing is to look at, maybe not next, but also in addition to the security and access of each one of the campuses. So we've done some review of each one of the security at the main entrances, and we've started to plug in numbers for each one of those for security film, and things of that nature. But here's an example of another a building we had done in the past, just to kind of show you a process that we want to go through and develop a direction for the district. So an existing building, there was basically previously there was direct access right into the building, and there was no security vestibules. So in this particular case, we put interior doors that were locked. You come in and it forces you into an entrance into the administration. We can put all different types of varying levels of security, whether it be security film, ballistic glass, locks on every one of the doors, but it's just a process that we'll go through as we get into each one of the facilities. And every district does things a little bit different, but that's the thing we want to talk about at each one. So we identify the area where the main entrance is, and then come to a consensus on what is the level of security we want to be putting at those. But obviously, trying to identify that main entrance and bringing them in and getting them into the main entrance so they're visible and they're coming into one access point on the campus is critical. So to summarize, again, the documentation, we're in really good shape with what we've done with the field work in the drawings, bringing together documentation. We started evaluation. We're probably down to three campuses. So we've got to do some additional evaluation of the North Campus. We've got to look at
Building C.
Building C, or
Union
High School, and then also the transportation facility. So those are the three that we're still needing to get into and finish up our, and then we have the suggestions and prioritization, along with, again, I'm going to tell you again that we are with you, that we feel like this has got to be continually a fluid process as we go through this, because it's always going to be changing depending upon the district's needs. One other thing that Wade has been really working on, and so we've got 3 levels of the master planning, and we're looking at it as the first document here is essentially the executive summary that summarizes everything. That we're looking at that is probably for the board. But from that, or that has been derived from all these other documents, then we have a middle, that's probably for Kevin and Mary, the superintendent, to basically, that has the executive summary in each one of the campuses in it. And then from there, we have the executive summary with the comprehensive facilities.
I'm not gonna pick this one up.
And basically a fact book of each one of the campuses on all the information. So this will all be provided to you in CD form so that you can share it and what have you. But a lot of information, but we are really gotten through a good portion of it. We still will go out and still want to walk some of the campuses. There's over 2,700,000 square feet, so give me a little bit of time to do that. But we need to do that just to kind of look at it and see if there's anything that's, there will be walls that may not be exactly because we can't get in each, but for the most part, the plans are going to be fairly current from, based on the existing plans. With that, Matt, or Wade, anything that you would like to add that I've missed, or you would want to?
I'll just summarize or make a couple quick points. As part of the master planning, Mark touched on the security and entrance access analysis. That in district-wide paving, we've kind of approached those as district-wide packages, and you will see that in the eventual executive summary. So just because there's not something listed under a certain school for a new security vestibule, we are analyzing that as a group package. So that will be included in the executive summary. In addition, following up on the Becky David example, the site plan development, you have multiple campuses that have 2, 3, 4 buildings on them. One is the campus right here that you have Central Elementary and Hollenbeck, Central School Road, Early Childhood. We want to look at those in how they relate to each other from a traffic standpoint as well. And that's kind of why we wanted to show Becky David, because we know there is some traffic flow issues between that and Barnwell, which is right next to it. So those are the 2 items I wanted to add. And then just to recap what Mark had said, we have the executive summary document, which is the bare bones executive summary plus master planning for each building. And this large volume is both of those items, as well as the start of historical documentation for the facilities and maintenance department. We've created documents for these. We filled in some information that either we've worked on or we know of, and then if we continue to move forward with different planning, we can start plugging into this book to help the maintenance and facilities and the school district administration know, okay, that roof's 5 years old, we don't need to worry about it for now. So this is what we like to call a fact book for the entire school district. It's got every building, every master plan, and as much historical data as we can plug into it. So
We tried to keep it short to 15 minutes. I probably want a little bit more than that, but any questions for us? Yes.
I do. I just have a quick question. So, for the example, the Becky David. So, when you look at the estimated cost for a roof replacement, is that the cost in 10 to 20 years where the estimated data is, or is it today's estimated price?
it's today's estimated price. We can add inflation to it, but we don't know what that inflation is going to be. So we try and use real world numbers with a built-in contingency to hopefully address as much as possible as far as the inflation. For instance, I believe I've got $20 a square foot in there for re-roofing in general. The actual re-roofing may be $15, $16, $17 a square foot, but I try and account for inflation, unknown conditions where maybe we've got to replace a bunch of roof deck, so I've tried to account for that, but I can't say I can account for exact inflation, I just don't know.
That's a really good question. So we're trying to use current dollars, not knowing how many years we should put on there.
Right, that's what I was gonna say, 10 to 20 years, I think, it could be doubled for all.
Yes. So
Yeah.
if there's something you would like us to be plugging on there, or at least making reference to it for the simple fact that, let's say you pick it up in 10 years, and you're saying these numbers were identified in year, 2018. So but we also don't want to inflate it if you do it, so it's kind of a catch-22, but it's a very good point.
Thank you.
So would there be maybe a summary of, we figured $20 per square for the roof, or is that included in that information? So then they'll have that reference point to know.
I have it started, I hadn't planned on including it, but I'll make it available.
Yeah.
It might be
It's
helpful.
easily,
So it would kind of
very-
be the assumptions that have.
Yes, that'd be.
and then that
definitely.
has a short description, for instance, I've got several categories of interior renovations, which some include just VCT, some includes VCT carpet, some includes VCT carpet paint. So I'd be glad to include that as a reference piece to
Sure,
the document.
VCT, this much a
Yeah.
square, carpet,
Yes.
this much,
Yeah.
just,
In some of those cases, I'm sorry to interrupt, but in some of those cases where the notes were, that's where we have included some of that information. One of the ones was the security vestibules, tried to identify what all we were including in that proposal at the entrance. So but that's definitely, it's a good point to have, this is what was used at this date in 2018, yeah.
Yeah, so they can't say they were way off.
Yeah. If they're good numbers, we were right on. If not, we'll be way off, so.
and so I'm assuming it's all digital as well, so our maintenance department will be able to annually review and update numbers.
Absolutely.
And awesome,
Yeah.
thank you.
Just the backgrounds in itself, so they have these, will be.
We
big.
used to create multiple copies of these for each school district that we did, and obviously that's killing a lot of trees. So Mark and I were actually discussing it earlier. Probably would be 1 or 2 hard copies come to the district, but each one, you'll get a disc to it. And of course, as you update them, if you want to share information, we want to keep our files up to date so that in case one of your guys need to call us, we can hopefully have an answer for you. So,
Perfect.
Mr. Ham?
Yeah. On your cycle replacement program, are you using the numbers that we currently have in-house? Are you using your own and plugging those in?
Those were given to us by the facilities department. We coordinated and made sure they were all the same.
Okay.
So, but we reviewed each one of them. They're as close as we believe to industry standards. Could you modify them by 5 years either way? Probably, but.
And that kind of goes into my next one, where the replacement program, I would say in the industry, AC units are typically 15 to 20, and most of our AC units are 25 to 30 on our buildings. We have a lot that are, because
Extended life.
we extend their life significantly.
And-
So these are based on industry standards, not our actual, because we get more out of them.
It's actually probably closer to yours because
Okay.
the facility department generated them. For instance, a roof typically the industry will say 20 years.
Right.
That's what your standard warranty is. A well-installed EPDM rubber roof typically will give you 25.
Okay.
So, and I believe that's what's on there for the roofing. So there are adjustments for real-world life cycle expectancy.
But please do look at those. If there's something that just, because we're kind of balanced between industry standard, if there wasn't something, or the district, if they had one, we're trying to kind of mesh the two, so, but.
And then the last question I have is, with the age of our buildings and that, I'm assuming we're gonna have a lot of red on a lot of our buildings. Are we going to get a overall from your expert opinion that we have all this red, but this is the most important red, this is the second most important red, this is the third most important red, as opposed to just, okay, there's all this red, let's figure out where we're gonna go? Are you guys gonna help prioritize the reds?
We don't have that yet. We would gladly and expect to help do that. We'll identify the red, the yellow, the green, the blue, and then once we move further into the planning, okay, we know we have this list of priority needs. How do we prioritize within that list?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
have we done that yet? No. Will we do that? Absolutely, with the
And that's
assistance of the school district.
Yeah, that's definitely something we'll need your input on, because you know what your needs are more than we do.
I agree, but I think walking the district, you're gonna go, this is an
Well,
emergent need.
Yes.
That's exactly why we want to do that. Yeah.
Mr. Lane?
Are you gonna tell us if we're wasting our money? I see $5 million at Becky David. And you fix that, and the building's now worth $3 million. You know, like, I think of Building C, Union High School, is an older building, and Becky David is an older building. Is the $5 million a good investment, or are we wasting our money and we need to look at replacing the building itself?
I think what we'll do there, and you can interject too, Wade, but as we put the numbers together and we start to look at the parts that need to be replaced, it's going to be kind of we need to evaluate it based on its need and what the repairs are. You know, so it would be by case, but yes, we can assist with that.
And
So that might look like with a priority 1 and 2 in the next 10 years, that the total is this, and building a new building or building an addition would cost this. So I think it would be easy enough to have that conversation at every building.
Yeah,
And to be truthful, the 3 buildings that Mark mentioned that we still have some work to do on, Francis Isle North, Building C, as you mentioned, and the transportation facility, we're trying to analyze where's that recommended breaking point of repair it, build it new.
Right, that's what I'm
So,
saying, we
and-
spent $5 million
Yes.
at Becky David, and now it's worth $3 million.
Yes.
Like,
so I mean,
You know, it's not
our
worth
goal is to provide you the information so that we can sit around and discuss it.
Okay.
Rather than us tell you, well, you gotta take this, because your needs may be different, but we want to give you the information. It's gonna take this much money to do this, and this. And that's gonna get you to this. How close are you to just building a new building? And then if we do a plan to show you what that same square footage cost will take to do on another campus, now you compare the two and we can talk about that. But it's really kind of but we want to give you all the information and you can make that decision. So,
Okay, thank you.
So really, the purpose of the workshop tonight was just to make sure that we're on the right track. These men have been working very hard to make sure that we have a master plan, a vision for long-range planning. And just want to make sure that this is what I thought it was going to be, but just want to make sure this is what the board was thinking the master plan was going to look like as an end product.
Sounds good.
This is very in detail.
Yeah, we're on our way.
thank you.
Okay, board, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap up. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
this
you
evening.
very much.
Great
Appreciate it.
information. I think you're right on target.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we will begin our meeting in 5 minutes.
Well, actually, we make an informed decision.
With
Winging it.
or favoritism by where you live.
Right. Oh, yeah, we're just doing this because you're a board member. You're kidding.
I don't know if I'm wrong page, but I'll be happy to have plans. Thanks so much. It's good stuff.
Thanks for having us.
Or they're-
He was like, wait.
Thanks, Wade.
Oh, good to see you again.
The other days. That's where mine Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I would not. We're not after a session.
That's more of a.
Kevin and I will collaborate for next. Start off easy this first time
All right, good evening. Sorry we're running a few minutes behind schedule this evening. But with it being 7:09, I'll call the Francis Howell School District Board of Education meeting to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, which is going to be led this evening by Miss Shelley Parks, Missouri Teacher of the Year.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mrs. Lang. By roll call.
Ms. Walker?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0. Next on our agenda is recognitions. Mr. Dykman.
Thank you, Mrs. Coe. Francis Howell High School marketing teacher and DECA advisor Larry Anders has been named the 2018 Marketing Educator of the Year by the Missouri Marketing and Cooperative Education Association. The honor recognizes Larry's significant contribution to quality programming that has resulted in high student achievement in marketing and cooperative education. Larry, would you come on up, please? Larry has dedicated 3 decades, so he must have started when he was 12, probably, Larry, to teaching, mentoring, and coaching in Francis Howell, and is truly deserving of this recognition. Both marketing classes and DECA provide students with real-world learning opportunities that pave the way for future success, which aligns very nicely with our new strategic plan. Ladies and gentlemen, the Missouri Marketing Teacher of the Year, Mr. Larry Anders.
I'll shovel, I'll go this way.
I'm gonna look really short about it. You were Michelle's teacher.
You were Michelle's teacher?
I was Missy Turner at the time. You were Missy Turner?
That's how long Larry's been teaching in the district. Shelley Parks, an English teacher at Francis Howell North, has been named the 2019 Missouri Teacher of the Year by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. She becomes the 50th Missouri Teacher of the Year since the program's inception, and the second to come from Francis Howell. Shelley was, of course, also our 2018 Francis Howell School District Teacher of the Year. Shelley, will you come up, please? What can we say about Shelley Parks that we haven't already said? She's worked in the district for 16 years and currently teaches AP Foundations, Sophomore English, and Senior AP English. As different as her students are, they all have one thing in common. They matter to her. It's important for her to get to know her students and make them feel valued, and it's the relationships she builds with students that help her be such an effective teacher. She has the highest standards that are summed up by a sign on her desk that says, "If it isn't good enough for my own kids, it isn't good enough for my students." Ladies and gentlemen, the 2018 Missouri Teacher of the Year, Shelley Parks.
Mike, you want in? Can I get in the picture?
Oh, well, sure.
Take one, Mike, and then get in one.
There you go.
Yeah, come on. It's like a hat now.
These two have posed for a lot of pictures with a lot of plaques and a lot of certificates in the last 6 weeks.
All right, thank you. So this is the gentleman that was in the pictures with you on your traveling adventures, right? Okay.
Shelley has to rush off. She has an interview to do now with KMOX Radio, so be sure to tune in tomorrow to hear that interview. Thank you, Mrs. Coe.
Do we have a student representative this
I
evening?
don't.
Yes.
I believe,
Ah,
I believe Dr. Woodlock
wonderful.
does.
Thank you, Dr. Whitlock.
Okay, good evening, Mrs. Koch, members of the board, Dr. Hendrick Terrace, executive cabinet members, patrons, and guests. I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's student school board member, Mr. David Yang. He is a senior at Francis Howell High School. Now, to introduce David, I thought we'd have a little fun and just pick out a few adjectives, of which there are many, to describe him. First and foremost, he is a gifted learner in every sense of that word. David is a National Merit semifinalist, which puts him in the top 1% of students nationally on the PSAT exam. He also scored a perfect 36 on his ACT after his freshman year of high school. So again, top 1% in the nation. He has a 4.82 GPA, has earned a college equivalency score on 9 advanced placement college equivalency exams already, and there'll be more this spring. He also, for fun, enters math competitions on the weekends, and he has qualified 2 times for the very prestigious AMY exam, which is the American Invitational Mathematics Examination. If you don't know what that is, it's a 15-question, 3-hour exam. But good news, all the answers are between 0 and 999, so probably a very simple test. And as you know, we also recently received the Excellence in Research Award from the Students and Teachers as Research Scientists program at UMSL through his collaboration with WashU professors this summer. So that's all how gifted he is as a learner. He's also very talented. He's in 6 clubs at Ranchtown High School, including swimming, technical student association, in which they design and fly gliders around the WashU campus and compete, and of course is in our academic scholar bowl. He's a leader. He is the captain of the boys swim team currently, and just hopped out of the pool tonight to come to the meeting. And he's courageous. He's an active rock climber. Spends his weekend in nature, relaxing and finding good spaces to climb rocks. And then finally, he's gregarious, which as a math student, I don't think that is always a descriptor that you first think of, but I had a very difficult time. I've known David for several years, but I went around and talked to teachers and peers about him. Very difficult time describing David. Invariably, when I ask them, okay, tell me a good David Yang story, they smile, they look at the ground, they look around the room, and they just apologize to me because they say he's a wonderful person, but I just can't find the right words to describe how great he is. Universally, they're astonished by his mix of intellect, character, humor, and ability to relate to others. These conversations often end with people asking me if we can find a way to keep David at Howell for a couple extra years, but we know that his interests and lie in his path ahead, and we wish him great things because we know that's what they will be. So as principal, I'm very excited and proud to offer up David Yang as tonight's Student School Board representative.
So one question, do you sleep?
At a very high level, I'm sure. Congratulations, welcome to the board.
So Mr. Yang, welcome to the board. We hope you participate with us tonight, ask questions, discuss what we're talking about. Mr. Hain will help you follow along in our meeting. You get to participate as a board member, except for you don't get to vote yet, maybe someday, okay? Here with us. If you ever, I asked you while you're up here if you sleep, 6 clubs, math competitions by choice, and rock climbing. So sleep probably is a little bit?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I try.
All right. And if you ever choose, if you want to go in the field of aerospace engineering, you just let me know. Welcome to the board. All right, next on our agenda, we have patron comments. So I would like to remind the audience that during our patron comment period, patrons are invited to address the Board of Education. Please come to the podium so everyone can hear. Please adhere to the 3-minute time limit. The board is interested in hearing the public's concerns and opinions, but we do not answer patron questions during the meeting. Questions and concerns will be addressed by Dr. Mary Hendricks Harris and other appropriate staff members. Also, please remember that comments about individual students and staff are not allowed due to confidentiality. These concerns need to be brought to the administration's attention and may be brought to the board in closed session. So with that, we have Christina Martel.
First name is Krista.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. For the past few months, I have listened to fellow professionals give a 3-minute account of their current reality. The day after the last board meeting, I sat in professional development as an administrator, introduced a clip from 60 Minutes as Oprah interviewed and stated what she learned from trauma-informed care. She stated, how you are responded to, valued, trusted, loved by those around you, and believing that you matter is what every human wants, to be mattered. I reflected on the statements, having the epiphany that the belief that teachers matter as much as the children that move through our classrooms and our schools is lacking, not just in the district, but across the nation. The federal government, under the Fair Labor Standards Act, exempts teachers from being paid overtime. We are lumped with lawyers that in 2017 averaged individual incomes of $119,000, and doctors that in 2017 averaged $208,000, where teachers ranged $56,000 to $59,000. I have lost count of Sunday afternoons given up either in my classroom or in the local library to finalize paperwork. I've left home when it's dark to return home when it's dark. Taken personal days just to get caught up on grading, lesson plans, and paperwork. According to the agreement with the board, a teacher that volunteers to cover another teacher's classroom is paid $20. Using that amount, should I be compensated for that time of 1 8-hour day a week for an entire year, I would be owed $8,320. I've been doing this for the past 15 years. If compensated, I would be owed $124,800. I honestly thought 28 years ago that when I started in this profession that I'd die in my classroom, and now I won't let that happen, figuratively or literally. Nationally, we're leaving the profession at 8% annually. That may not seem like a lot, but 35% people or fewer are going into educator programs, and 23% are not completing these programs. So the reasons cited by teachers nationally for leaving the profession are the same reasons that we've presented to the board as support staff, teachers, and union. Stress of paperwork, ridiculous unfunded curriculums, lack of time, unreasonable expectations, unmanageable class sizes, lack of materials, frivolous meetings, testing, data collection, lack of making decisions based on what is best for students, and coming back to the start of this statement that our families matter and are a priority. Your actions have shown that teachers don't matter. Accepting FHE endorsements and then not following through on the actions, your words earned that endorsement. Lack of transparency about the state of the district and utilizing teachers as the faces of 3 failed bond issues, our tax levies. If Francis House School District is a true future-focused school district it claims to be, you will focus on the retention of highly qualified teachers by showing your staff, your students, and community that this matters. That is what every staff member wants to be, is to matter. What every teacher wants to know, that they matter. What every human wants to know is that they matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Gabriel Prather.
Good evening. So for the interest of time, I will keep my own personal introduction short. So I was recently a graduate from France South Central High School. I knew David for a few years. Granted, my own personal list is very much shorter than his. I recently graduated a year early while still maintaining high enough grades in order to do that. And I was accepted into the biomedical engineering program at SLU, which is regarded as one of, if not the hardest course and path to take there. So the reason I'm standing before you all tonight is in support of the teachers and what I'm currently seeing with them. Being blessed as a student to go through this system for 13 or so years, if I would have stayed on the conventional path, I've been lended certain different perspectives, both as a student, as a recent constituent, and as my mother's son. since she is a teacher in this district. Now, speaking as her son and as a student, I can see that over the course of the years, this district has changed a lot. When I was younger and much more naive, I used to see my teachers as energetic and hopeful for the future and just giving everything they have to the students because they were supported, because they had all of the tools and all of the trade they needed in order to go out and give that for the students. Now, as I got older, my teachers still gave everything they had to the students. And to this day, I know they still do. But their amount that they can give from themselves is becoming less and less because of the amount of support that we are getting from the superintendents, from the district, and from the board. The teachers themselves are hurting, and all of us students can see it. Granted, I was the only one who was able to recognize it at the time. Now, leading on after I graduated, I became more political in my views because I have to become a constituent, and I have to become more informed. So I started looking at it from our financial perspectives and everything that I've been able to learn. And in that amount, we have a sheer Brobdingnagian, which means giant, I just love using that word, amount in our reserves that could be allocated to buying new books for classrooms, that could be allowed for teachers who have to take unpaid days out of their breaks in order to go support different clubs and sports. But it's not. It's just sitting there waiting for something to happen that never will. When we could be supporting our students and our teachers in order to give them the best education possible. I'm standing up here as a disgruntled citizen and not just as some immature little kid who wants to see a better change within our district so that we can give each and every student an opportunity to grow and be the best individual they can be.
Thank you, your time is up.
Thank you. Next, we have Stephanie Bosch.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Stephanie Bosch, and my daughter is an 8th grade honors student at Francis Howell Middle School. I am here to discuss the recent events that have occurred at the school surrounding a student who physically attacked staff members on Friday, October 5th. The child was allowed to roam the halls, banging on lockers, kicking doors, licking glass sidelight windows, traumatizing students and teachers for at least 2 hours after the police had left. This disruptive behavior, while different each day, was allowed to go on for several days, leaving staff, students, and parents anxious and fearful. My understanding is that the student is no longer at the school, and while that does provide much relief, it still leaves me with many questions. I would like to know what protocols, if any, are in place for the violent and disruptive behaviors that played out over the course of the last week. I would also like to know if teachers and staff are aware of the state and community resources available to parents and guardians whose children suffer from mental illness and abuse. In the aftermath of the Parkland, Florida shooting, our children are now leading the charge in preventing the violence that seems to have infiltrated their world at an alarming pace. We adults can no longer bury our heads in the sand, nor can we assume that just because a student is removed from our school, that the danger is over. The recent events at Howell Middle School bring to light the reality that exists in our nation's school today. We must, as a community of parents, teachers, and students, be able and willing to detect and detour the efforts of the future Adam Lanzas, the Nicholas Cruzes, and the Dylan Klebols and Eric Harrises that are crying out, warning us of their future intentions. Like Category 5 hurricanes, there are many elements that go into creating these perfect storms in Parkland, at Sandy Hook, and Santa Fe High. In fact, there have been 217 of these perfect storms that have occurred in the United States since Columbine. These children show us warning signs: depression, anger, rage toward others. Sadly, many of these children scream out for years, but it seems we only listen and act after they have committed unspeakable tragedies. Then we want to call them monsters. I believe Francis Howell can become a beacon of light for those seeking to avoid these kinds of tragedies. But I believe it's vital that we act before they do. But what we cannot do is ignore what has happened. We cannot allow at-risk kids to put other kids at risk. We cannot allow this to become the norm. We cannot imprison our children in the classrooms because it's not safe for them to walk the halls. We cannot ask them to ignore the violence and become complacent, because one day their complacency may prove to be fatal. Thank you.
Thank you. Raquel Babb.
We made a mistake, my fellow teachers. With our dreams of changing the world one child at a time, we followed in our teacher, sister, and brother's footsteps and accepted whatever our communities were willing to offer and made up the difference ourselves. My dad tells stories of his family hosting the school teacher in his home when he was a child, how different families each week had to provide food and shelter for the teacher because it wasn't even expected to pay her enough to own her own home. We all see what's happening in school districts in some other states where teachers have only broken, out-of-date textbooks, water dripping from the ceilings, and classrooms packed with children. But still they teach and do what they can and spend from their own pockets to help children, and were ridiculed when they recently started fighting for themselves. We made a mistake, my fellow teachers. We wanted rooms that were colorful and inviting, but our budgets were too small and the day was too short for decorating, so we came early and we stayed late, using our own money to make sure the room was perfect for that first day. And once we did it once, we couldn't not do it because kids and the parents and the principals loved it. We made a mistake, my fellow teachers. We attended professional development and learned amazing ways to engage students, and so our lesson planning time quadrupled. We began creating multimedia presentations with manipulatives and interactive journals that we had to cut and paste and laminate on our own time. But how the kids loved them, and what a difference it really made, so everyone wanted it to always be that way, no matter how many hours it took. We made a mistake. We learned about data tracking and goal setting, and it became a part of the fabric of our jobs, even though none of it fit within the school day or the 1 hour of collaboration reserved. We were proud of the difference it made in achievement, so we tipped the work-life scales a little more to the work side, and we kept doing it. We made a mistake. We believed that the fruits of our labors would be seen by central office and our Board of Education, and that they would stand on the mountaintop to proclaim, the teachers of Francis Howell deserve every dollar we promised and every dollar we have to spare. We believed that you, and you, and you would be the ones to finally stand up to the public and who believe that they have given enough to education and demand more and show them why we deserve everything you can give us. We believe that you would be the ones to defend and fight for us, not against us. Because we love children and we were called to do anything we could for their success, we did just that. But our Board of Education and our central office and our voters did not. We made a mistake in believing that others would think we were worth it, but we are.
Thank you. FHEA?
Good evening, President Cope, members of the board, Superintendent Hendricks Harris, members of the cabinet. I am Anita Keener and President of FHEA. I'd like to thank board member Janet Stiglich for donating the remaining campaign funds to Friends of Children. Your contribution will be used to help many children in Francis Howell. We do really appreciate that, and it does go for a very good cause. And I want to thank all of the teachers of Francis Howell. We have great teachers here, and they do great things. And Raquel, you said a lot. We do everything we can with whatever we have. And it is a shame what is going on here. And it is a shame that none of you have reached out. It's not funny. It really isn't, Mary. Is it really a shame what is happening here?
I say A. Board, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mrs. Lang. By roll call.
Mrs. Lang?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0. Next on our agenda is the curriculum, first reading. Next on our agenda is the academic update. Dr. Hoban.
Thank you and good evening. Right about now is the time of year we would really like to be giving you a full academic workshop on all of the data from last year and where we stand on all of that. Unfortunately, we still don't have all of that. So tonight is intended instead to give you an update on where we are, what we anticipate coming forward, and some of the potential things we see coming, and we just want to prepare everyone for that. So to that end, the first thing we want to do is just talk about the timeline that we have in front of us right now. We are anticipating that the week of October 29th is when we should be receiving our initial data for review and appeals. So that's not released to the public, that is still embargoed, nothing gets to be publicized at that point, and therefore we won't be able to present it to you, but we'll be able to get our first look at it and make sure that we see what we believe we should see, and it gives us a chance to spend some time with that data. Week of December 3rd, APR, that's released to district. Again, it's not public, it's just for us to get a look at it and make sure we don't see anything we need to appeal or do anything else with. And it won't be until the week of December 17th that final APR is released, and ultimately will be made public at that time. That is the week of the December board meeting. So as far as whether we'll be able to get that in enough time to give a full update, one of the things we typically do is look at comparison districts at the same time. We likely won't have that information by the December board meeting. We'll have our information and could do something, but we won't be able to do probably the full update we would normally give you until January, when we can get the information from other districts. Just to talk a little bit about what has caused this delay this year. Last year was pretty late as well, but this year has gotten a lot of attention on how late everything has been. Part of it was new tests in English and math. Science assessments, this isn't a delay issue, but there's going to be no scores in science. Those were just pilots this year. The last piece we're going to spend a little time talking about, that's cut scores. Those were not established until late in the summer this year. And cut scores is the lines after they grade all the assessments. They draw lines between below basic and basic and proficient and advanced. And so each time they go through this process, set those cut scores so that they can determine the status of every student who took a test. More though about the timing of the cut scores is this is what we want to talk a little bit about. There was a lot of issues that came out of this when they first talked with educators around the state on where these cut scores landed. It set off some alarms at districts all over the state. This cut scores were set unusually high compared to past years. And what we've been told is that there was a lot of conversation at the time of setting the cut scores around trying to use NAEP standards, which are national standards, and ACT college and career readiness benchmarks, which were not what they used in the past to set cut scores. As a result, they ended up with cut scores significantly higher than in past years. What does that mean? Well, that means there's a predictable decrease in scores everywhere across the state without signaling an actual decrease in the achievement of the students. So whether students scored the same as in past years or even higher, we're going to likely see a decrease in those scores all over the state. And we've got an example up here. So for example, third grade ELA, what's being predicted is the state level last year would have been a 62.2% proficiency or advance rate. That will dip to 49% with the cut scores that they have currently set. So likewise, we anticipate that as a district, we would see a decrease as well. Now, the considerations that causes for us, obviously that becomes a public issue as this information gets publicized. You know, we spend a lot of time every year talking about our scores and what do we do with them, how does that information help us when we're planning our education for our students. You know, the one thing we don't want to see is public information out there that paints a picture that's different than what reality has been for us. The good news is, if there's good news that comes out of this, is the state board expressed concern about the process that had happened, and as a result there were some meetings that were originally intended just to inform educators of some decisions that had been made. In those meetings, they actually, it appeared, accepted input and are revisiting potentially the cut score issue. So we don't yet know where this is going to land. They've given us a couple of scenarios. One would be that the cut scores themselves are revisited and potentially that action is reversed and they rethink what the cut scores should be. Or the second being leave the cut scores as they are, but work with the formula so that our APR is not hurt. The scenario there means our accountability isn't hurt, but the public reporting of our data would still be those lower proficiency rates. So we don't yet know where that's going to land. Those are the two scenarios that have been presented for us. We feel it's important to make sure that you're aware and that our community is aware that we do anticipate the very real potential of seeing a significant dip in scores, not attributed to actual dips in our students' achievement. So that's something that this update, we intended to just offer you that information because as the next couple of months pan out and we get more information, we'll get a firmer picture of where we think that will end up. But we certainly didn't want to wait to get that information in front of you. So that's the update for tonight. Any questions that you have?
The update on the update.
Yes.
Ms. Walker.
I'm just curious, cut scores, is that just cut off, like?
So if you figure just putting all of the scores in front of you and then saying we're going to draw a line where below basic ends and then we're going to draw a line where basic turns into proficient and then proficient into advanced. So those cuts in between are the cut scores that they set.
Joy?
Has the state spoken with you about the data? I know a couple people said they hate that word and so do I, but how do we drive instruction when the teachers don't find out till mid-year what they've done well and what they need to improve upon?
So one of the focuses we have within our district, and a lot of districts do the same, is to look more at formative data that we have with our current kids. This data, it's valuable for certain things, certainly shows us if we have large holes in our approach, but these are kids that have already moved on to the next level. So to help the current kids in these classes, the current students, we really turn to more formative measures, whether we're looking at our benchmark exams that we're doing, but really day to day, the teachers do a great job of looking at the different assessments they do all day long with their students, whether it's formal assessments, you know, tests or things at the end of a unit, or whether it's just their day-to-day interactions with students. And so yes, as far as setting overall goals that we usually would use this data, it hurts us there and sets us back a little bit. But with the students that are in front of us right now, we really work to look at that more timely data that really drives instructional decisions minute by minute, day by day.
Mr. Hain?
Yeah, I know that you said we're not going to get the information until like right before that board meeting, and I, for one, would rather you take the time and present that in January instead of giving us a presentation in December. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but instead of looking at partial and then looking at another partial, I'd just rather look at it all at once.
Sounds fair.
Seems to be a consensus. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is our best practice 4E training. Dr. Hendricks-Harris.
Yeah, I'm just going to briefly introduce a video, tonight's video, and our best practices about our in-district active shooter training, known as 4E. We have over 500 of our staff have already been trained this school year, and by the end of next year, we'll have all of our staff trained. You know, because we've been through it a few times last year, all of the actions the district takes to increase safety. So this is something new this year that we have implemented, and I would just add that we continue to work on a general safety training for all of our teachers at the beginning of the year, having crisis teams in every building. The district has been able to maintain our middle school and high school SROs, And one of the things we are working on right now is researching an alert system, or potentially piloting an alert system soon. So with that, roll the film.
4E is essentially an options-based program that teaches people how to respond to an active killing situation. It's kind of like a run, hide, fight program. The only difference is we don't teach our program as a hierarchy. The important takeaway with 4E is that people should take the most appropriate action based on the circumstances. So if running away isn't a viable option, well, then we don't try to run away, we try another option first.
Presentation portion is given by Sergeant Clay. He does a great job teaching all kind of different tactics anyway, things that we can do during stressful situations. You know, it's not like we're teaching the staff and faculty to take weapons from individuals, but it's to distract the people, you know. It can be simple little tools like books on a shelving unit that's stacked near the door of the classroom. I have a shelving unit I can move in front of the door. I have books in place we can throw at the person, and I have a window that's at ground level and it's operational, so we can open this window as these people are doing this, and we're going to start getting out of the building. Really, once they've gone through the training, it's testing their decision-making abilities. You know, they put them in a stressful situation, fire a weapon that's a blank, which is powder and a primer. There's no projectile or anything like that that's involved. But it is somewhat intimidating, you know. If you've never heard a weapon, then you go through this process and you hear a weapon in a building, you know, it's pretty loud. You know, it's great just to see people make a choice just after 2 hours of training, you know, and there's not been one time where I just see somebody just standing there froze up, you know, like without being able to make a decision.
We have situations that happen every single day in our country and around the world as well. So it's increased, of course, with the school shootings through the history, but we try to take a new approach to it and educate our staff as well.
I think this training is definitely important. I mean, you can never train or get enough drills to really prepare for the real thing, but it's nice to have an experience where you can kind of at least feel it and make you more aware of kind of how to handle the situation when it or if it does even present itself.
They were very helpful teaching us about the difference between what to do for an inward door versus an outward door, when to run, ways that we can improve our intruder drills as building leaders was really helpful. You know, I've never thought about the tips that they gave us, so, you know, just opening that conversation with the leadership team and with our faculty.
We certainly, you know, don't want our staff and faculty to become stagnant if this type of event were to happen in one of our school buildings, right? We want them to make a choice, one of these three choices, hopefully, and save as many lives as they can.
Very, very scary topic, and I know that how hard that training can be, but I am glad our district does that.
Board, any questions on the video or our program?
Okay. Next, we have another piece of film, the MSBA board report. Jason to the rescue.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of October. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the recent 2018 MSBA Annual Conference, where nearly 1,300 school board members and administrators gathered to improve their leadership skills. Board members and administrators had the opportunity to attend more than 130 breakout sessions and workshops presented mostly by leaders from school districts throughout the state. One of the keynote speakers at the conference this year was former U.S. Senator and professional basketball star Bill Bradley, a graduate of Crystal City High School near St. Louis. Senator Bradley said he believes our public schools need to place an even stronger emphasis on teaching the history and practice of our democracy. He said it will be up to our young people to shape the future of our democracy if they choose to do so.
And that's where I think our education system is so important. To be able to talk about, well, what is our government? How does it work? What has it done over years? What has it done? What has our democracy done to try to create and successfully create these high living standards or life expectancy or literacy rates? What was it in our history that led us to where we are now? And if you want to shape your future, then you need to get busy doing the necessary work of a citizen. Not simply the rights of citizenship, but the responsibilities of citizenship, which I think fundamentally is voting in this country.
MSBA presented Senator Bradley with the 2018 Outstanding Graduate of Missouri's Public Schools Award following his remarks. Those attending the annual conference also had a chance to hear from members of the State Board of Education during a panel discussion. State Board Vice President Vic Lenz told the audience he believes the pieces are in place to make progress on providing more Missouri children with quality early childhood education programs.
We're probably in a better position than we've ever been, than I've ever seen us be in, because I know MSBA has pushed for early childhood forever, and we have been working on it, and now the governor has expressed that this is an important key to him. So all the pieces should be in place. Now all we have to do is convince the legislature to do something more.
Lenz and other members of the state board also discussed the process now underway for selecting a permanent commissioner of education. He said the state board will be conducting interviews at the end of this month and hopes to have a permanent commissioner named sometime in November. MSBA Executive Director Melissa Randall, who moderated the state board panel discussion, said the board is now in a solid position to move forward with the selection process after months of turmoil earlier this year.
The reason the state board could not function for several months this last year is because we have a state law that requires a minimum of 5 of the 8 state board members to be in place and to take action in order to function. And so we now have, and we also felt like it was important, even though the governor could appoint the state board members and he could have filled out all 8 positions, Governor Parson, this summer and fall, we felt like it was really important before the decision was made to hire the commissioner that a minimum of 5 of those board members were confirmed. And now we have 6 confirmed positions.
The MSBA Delegate Assembly met during the annual conference to vote on the association's position statements that form the basis of MSBA's advocacy efforts. Position statements approved by the Delegate Assembly include support of increased state funding for early childhood education programs, support of increasing the motor fuel tax to improve roads and bridges on which our students are transported to and from school every day, and opposition to moving school board elections away from the April election date. One of the highlights of this year's annual conference was a student showcase where students from school districts throughout the state were on hand to share information about innovative programs in their districts, such as this roller coaster project constructed by students from McDonald County and a food truck operated by students from the Blue Springs School District. The annual MSBA School Personnel Information Survey is now open. This survey collects information on the wages, salaries, and benefits of teachers and other school employees to help boards and administrators make fully informed personnel decisions. Member districts that complete the survey and submit their salary schedules and collective bargaining agreements by November 12th receive free access to the data collected. Make sure your district's information is included in this year's database. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
Board, next on our agenda is a motion to approve the purchases over $7,500 as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mrs. Stiglich. Any questions? By roll call?
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Board, I'll entertain a motion to approve the September 2018 financial statements as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mr. Lane. Mr. Supple.
Thank you, Mrs. Cope. These statements do cover the first quarter of the fiscal year, so I thought it was a good time to maybe take a look at some of our results. I noted a couple times in the report that the timing of our revenue or expenditures does make a difference when we're comparing the results between fiscal years. So, for example, we received $600-some thousand in current taxes a little earlier last year than this year, and so the percentages look a little different, but we have to understand that that's likely just a matter of timing and will eventually work itself out. Similarly, this year, our federal revenue was received a little bit earlier. It's not an indication that we're going to receive substantially more money this year than previously. It's just a matter of the timing when it was received. I noted that the state hasn't yet adjusted the adequacy target that they use in the formula. I imagine that they will. The state usually allows districts an opportunity to complete some of their core data reporting in terms of the number of students they expect, particularly districts that may be estimating their ADA. And so we will see that happen as the year moves forward. We did receive notice this week that state revenue collections are down 3.2% for the first quarter of the year. The state budget director says he anticipates that that will right itself as the fiscal year progresses, but we are seeing that the downturn is particularly related to individual income tax collections, and a majority of the state's general revenue is dependent upon individual income tax collections. We're beginning to see the downstream effect of some of the decisions that were made at the federal level in terms of changes to tax laws, which may be impacting what's happening here in Missouri. The good news is that last year's revenue was a little higher than the state had budgeted for, so at this point the state budget director doesn't anticipate that there's any need for withholdings, as we've seen in prior years. And that the budget really that the revenue has to grow a very small percentage in order to meet what has been appropriated. But I do think it has an implication for down the road if we begin to see some ongoing trends of lower than expected collections, particularly in terms of individual income taxes. On the expenditure side, overall, we've spent about 19% of our budget, and that's on par with the prior year. I've noted several areas where we're keeping a watch to see what may need to be adjusted in the revised budget based on progress that we've seen to date. And then just the final note that I have is that through the end of September, we spent $18.4 million more than we took in on a current basis. And so that really helps to reinforce why it's important for us to maintain a fund balance, because we need to have those funds to cash flow the district, because the majority of our revenue comes in December and January. And we will continue to overspend on a current basis until mid-December when we receive that revenue. So while it looks like there's a lot of money, it really is our ability to continue to fund the operations of the district.
Thank you, Mr. Supple. Mrs. Walker?
We had almost $1 million in data processing services that we didn't have before. I was just curious, what was that?
This is a reclassification of expenditures. DESI has realigned some of the accounting codes, and so we're spending the same money, it's just showing up in a different line item.
Thank you. And do you have any idea what the sub-budget's going to get adjusted to?
We'll have to take a little, that's a little bit difficult to answer just off the top of my head, but we will take a look at what our actual expenditures were last year and begin to see what our trends are to see what type of an adjustment might need to be made.
Any other questions, board? Ms. Stiglich?
Mr. Supple, you said that you received notices this week that the revenue is down a little bit. Do we have a plan in place if that stays down, or are we just going to be looking at it to see? I mean, I know they're saying they don't expect it to stay that way, but, you know, I'm also blue, so I want to make sure we have a plan in place that if that indeed stays, say, down.
I don't anticipate that there will be an issue in terms of meeting this year's budget because the state's overall revenue only has to grow by 0.3% in order to meet the appropriation. So I'm sure that we're going to make that. It's more an indication that if I were in the General Assembly or if I was a state budget director, I'd be concerned about what that might mean as a trend and what revenue might be available for future years as they're making their decisions about appropriations in the future. So for fiscal year 19, I don't have any concerns with the state funding all of the initiatives that they've budgeted, but they're going to have to make some hard decisions about whether this is just a timing issue like we've talked about, or a fundamental change in collections that may have an impact on general revenue, which of course has a direct impact on what's available for K-12 appropriations.
Is that because of the changes at the federal level for the taxes that they came through, that this will be the first real year that those will be in place?
It's a double effect of reductions in the individual income tax rate and corporate income tax rates that were passed by the state of Missouri that are beginning to finally impact our revenue. And then also, I believe, the impact of changes at the federal level for those people who file their taxes on a quarterly basis as opposed to on an annual basis. These first results would indicate that there's been a decline in individual income tax as a result of some of those federal changes. So we'll have to see how that actually plays out for the remainder of the year.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? By roll call.
Mr. Lang?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Next on our agenda, we have an insurance update. Mr. Supple again.
Thank you, Mrs. Cope. I just wanted to note a couple of things. Very good news is that our pharmacy trend is down 4%, and even more important is that our specialty pharmacy trend is down 8%. So that's been a substantial reversal from where we were, which is a good thing. The other side of the equation, however, is that we are seeing some significant impacts from particular disease states on our costs. So cancer has had a particularly difficult effect on our funds, both on the pharmacy side and on the medical side. So just on non-specialty pharmacy, for some of the drugs used to treat cancer, we've seen a 60% increase in the trend, which is pretty significant. On the specialty side, you know, that same level of trend accounted for about $83,000 additional dollars in spend. Diabetes continues to be a cost driver. That's one of our major areas. We have seen 12 new plan members that have diabetes, and so we're hopeful that some of the programs we have in place, particularly the near-site clinic, which I'm going to talk about in just a bit, will help people remain compliant with their treatment protocols or help them take some life changes that might eliminate the need for some of the medication used to treat those conditions. But it is having an impact. We have implemented a number of clinical programs on the pharmacy side that help us reduce our overall pharmacy spend, and those amounted to $675,000 in savings, so a pretty significant increase. Rebates that we receive from the pharmaceutical companies total almost $1 million, $956,000, and that's a 17% increase from last year, so that's also very good. And then we've just recently implemented a variable copay program That's yielded $78,000 in savings from just 33 members who participate. And what that does, it allows us to, behind the scenes, adjust the copay so that those manufacturer rebates that are available, we capture all of it that's out there. So if we let our copay stay where it was, they would get their copay assistance, but it would only match our copay, not the maximum they would allow. So we adjust our copay to the maximum, and we collect the maximum copay assistance from the manufacturer. It's transparent for the member. It doesn't cost the member anymore. It just allows us to get all of the money from the manufacturers. Again, cancer on the medical side was a pretty significant factor. There were large increases for chemotherapy and radiation. The good news is that almost 100% of our claims are in network, so we're able to benefit from the discounts that are available when we use in-network services. And our network discounts were a little bit better than when compared to our last quarter. And every quarter that's impacted really by the type of services that are received. So I think we do a very good job in terms of accessing our network, but the level of discount could be dependent upon the mix of services that are received. Some conditions have a higher discount than others, and to the extent that you have more services of that type in one quarter, you get a little bit better overall discount. If you happen to have a higher percentage of services that are not discounted as heavily, it affects your overall percentage, but we're doing a great job. And then I did note in the report that on Monday, October 15th, our Nearside Clinic is opening. We're very excited about that. CARE ATC has been working very hard to get everything ready. I'll be taking a tour of the facility tomorrow to see that everything is ship-shape and ready to go. And we are still working to find the right physician to fill the clinic on a permanent basis. We've interviewed one candidate and had some preliminary discussions with several others, but we just haven't found the right fit yet. In the interim, we are using CARE ATC physicians who are currently servicing other clinics in the greater St. Louis area who will be filling in on a rotational basis to make sure that we're covered. So we're getting the same approach to medical care that brought us to decide on CARE ATC as our provider in the first place. So we've got that conceptual approach to medicine, and then we're very hopeful that soon we will be able to lock in on that physician who's just the right fit for Francis Health.
So Kevin, one of the questions I have is, I'm familiar with the locum practice. I want to make sure that our worksite clinics are providing continual care for our staff. So that means someone that is resident with our programs. And you mentioned in here that they have to give 90 days notice after we choose one. Obviously, I want to make sure we choose the best fit. I just ask that we make it a priority. Make it ensure that we're working that as fast as we can to give continual care to our employees.
You echoed exactly the sentiment that I've expressed on more than one occasion to CARE ATC.
Okay, thank you. Board, any other questions? Mr. Ham?
Yeah, on the reserve account, can you help me understand why there's such a significantly larger reserve for this year than there was like 2 years ago? And
well, probably a couple factors impact that. We have had greater success with our clinical programs. As I mentioned, you know, that $675,000 of savings. But also I think the rebates that we're seeing are a little bit better than what we've seen previously. We have, over a period of time, increased our contributions in various ways, so that the net effect of that is that we're beginning to see we're beginning to rebuild to what I would consider to be the more appropriate level of our reserves. And if you take a look at where we were in 2012, we're getting closer to what that number is. We have had a little bit more difficult year this year in terms of claims overall. So that number, this is, as of August 31, these other numbers are all as of September 30th. And that can change a little bit, so it's not really an apples to apples comparison. It's impossible for me to estimate what it's going to be at September 30th. So there's a little difference there, and depending upon the mix of what we take in terms of our premiums and what gets paid out in a particular month, that number will certainly be impacted differently. So I wouldn't say that what you're seeing there is going to continue exactly. It will be something different, but I think the trend is in the right direction, and hopefully will be a little bit higher than we have been previously.
Board, any other questions? Great, thank you very much, Mr. Supple.
You're welcome.
Next on our agenda is our first updates on our strategic planning committees that are in place now. Dr. Hogan?
Yes, I'm going to start with an update on Goal 1. As you know, we're still relatively early in this work, so our updates will probably be a little bit briefer tonight than they will be later on. Goal 1, as you know, is college, career, and life success. We've had 2 meetings to this point. We started with our advisory meeting, and we were very pleased. We had a super turnout for that meeting. We had, not just in numbers, mid-30s in the number of people who came, but a lot of business representation. And given that a major part of ours is talking about career success, it was really good to have that input as part of our committee. So as an update of what we've done so far, we really felt it was important to identify and define what do we mean when we say college, career, and life success. Over the years, that may have changed a little bit in school districts across the country. And so before we really get into the work on the details, we really want to have a firm belief on what do we mean when we say those things. Because we're going to have trouble identifying action steps if we don't know exactly what our end game is when we're talking about how we define those things. So our advisory committee, we split them up into groups, got a lot of input on all 3 separate. What do you mean by college success? What do you mean by career? What do you mean by life? And then we spent the next meeting with our standing committee, the smaller group, really pulling that input all together and working on building a profile of what a current Francis Howell graduate should look like, what that profile should be. And once we have that in place, we'll be ready to move forward on our next steps, which is looking at some key performance indicators and other measurements that we'll look for as we set our goals and what we're trying to meet. So that's the Goal 1 update. Any questions there?
Ms. Walker, did you have a question? No, I think we're good right now.
All right. And I think next is going to be Goal 2, and I believe Rich Wilson's going to talk about that.
Good evening, Board of Education, Francis Howell community. I'm pleased to provide our short update on the Goal 2 of the new strategic plan, which is engaging learning environments. The vision of Goal 2 is to cultivate a learning environment that is inclusive, innovative, collaborative, and engaging. Dr. Jennifer Patterson and I lead out the Goal 2 area. We are just at the very beginning of our work as well. We just have had one meeting, which was our Goal 2 Advisory Committee meeting on September 17th. There were 31 internal and external stakeholders who attended. The meeting included a presentation about the overview of the current or the new strategic plan. We talked about the mission, vision, and values, and then we had an overview of the other or all 5 of the goal areas. We then started to focus in on Goal 2, and we wanted to get input from the large advisory group in our first meeting. So what we did is we posed the question to start the brainstorming and input from the group. In a perfect world, what would an innovative, inclusive, collaborative, and engaging learning environment look like in Francis Howell School District? So from the work, the input, the discussions from the September 17th meeting, there were a few major themes that started to develop in the Goal 2 area, which included learning environments that are safe, nurturing, student-centered, flexible, inclusive, and collaborative. Other themes included restorative practices, risk-taking, real-world focus and authentic learning, tech-forward, 21st century digital skills, a variety of technology, equity, innovation, online and digital learning opportunities, and effective use and implementation of technology and digital resources. So really, for our next steps are our standing committee meetings in Goal 2. We're going to further review the input and work of the advisory committee. We want to identify major themes from the advisory input, and then further discuss and explore the Goal 2 strategies in relation to the advisory input. We then want to have collaboration around potential action steps and corresponding key performance indicators. And then we want to discuss prioritizing our action steps. And then from there, we'll start to begin the formation of our action teams around Goal 2. So that is our update this evening. I know Goal 2 members and myself, Dr. Patterson, are excited and eager to begin our work in the upcoming meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board, any questions on this goal? I have a comment. I am very excited about this structure. I know it's taken a lot of time to get our arms around what it looks like, but with our standing committees, having a professional and relevant skill set on them is exciting to me, and the amount of community participation that we're getting there. And then having those advisory committees reviewing that information, kind of doing a check from a public perspective. I'm very excited as we get started on this process. I'm also very interested in seeing those KPIs, those key performance indicators, so we can begin measuring how we're getting down that path. So thank you. I know it's uncomfortable, but I'm very excited about it. Great. All right, next on our agenda is superintendent comments.
So I'm going to start tonight with a few celebrations. Francis Howell teachers Julie Eckhoff and Andrea Head join an elite group of St. Louis area educators selected to receive the 2018 Emerson Excellence in Teaching Awards. This award recognizes teachers for their passion in teaching, their impact on student learning, and their knowledge and creativity in the classroom. The recipients are chosen for their outstanding contributions to the teaching profession and to the students they teach. If you know Andrea or Julie, you can attest to the fact that their work changes lives. The first week of October, we celebrated Maintenance and Custodian Appreciation Week. Our team works hard every day to ensure our facilities are conducive to both learning and teaching. Our people are dedicated and driven, and we appreciate all that they do. The first quarter of our school year is complete, and I want to tell you that there continues to be improvement and successes in our schools. 5 of our buildings have significantly raised their climate scores. Many teachers are excited about implementing new writing strategies. The first round of mandated dyslexia training is complete. Our students are participating in CAPS in 4 different strands across St. Charles County. We have teams being trained in equity and restorative practices. I could go on about the work that we're doing, but I want you to know our students have had a good first quarter. I know several board members were able to attend the trivia night held for the Francis Howell Alumni Education Foundation last weekend. This event was a success with over $5,000 raised for early childhood scholarships and teacher grants. Last Saturday, the district also held a recycling event. The district collected a large amount of electronics and appliances, but no mattresses. I want to publicly thank Lance Broughton for his work the past few weeks. We've had several issues with our utilities. Lance is a problem solver who literally worked day and night to ensure our schools were open and learning could continue. I believe the board knows about some upcoming events, but just want to remind you that on November 3rd, we'll hold our 3rd annual Parent University, which will cover a variety of topics including mental health, vaping, screen time, potty training, and AP class selection. Sessions will be led by community partners as well as internal professionals, and will focus on the areas of academic support, health, and wellness, as well as preparing for college. Registration and the vendor fair starts at 8, and the sessions start from 9, go to 12 o'clock, and the event's at Sager. Fridays with the board will be held Tuesday, October 23rd, 6 o'clock at the Francis Howell Central Library. Members of the Francis Howell Board of Education, learning comments. Members of the Francis Howell Board of Education will be available to talk to students, staff, parents, and community members. It's an opportunity to interact with the board members in an informal setting, ask questions, and provide input. Brownies and refreshments will be provided. I want to wish all of our staff a happy fall break. I hope everyone takes the time to refresh and have some quality time with their friends and family.
Great, thank you very much. Next on our agenda is Board of Education comments. I have a couple that I'd like to begin with. First, I'd like to give a shout out to Dr. Hendricks Harris and to Dr. Buckman for their presentation at MSBA. They really helped keep Francis Howell School District on the map at that organization and that celebration of the school boards there at the state. I'd also like to thank my fellow board members for attending that. As a volunteer,
we put a lot of time in supporting our district, and at that event, it is important that we are learning from other districts, learning about hot educational topics and political topics that affect education, and hearing an update from the Missouri State Board of Education. So thank you for making that a priority each year. Also like to give a quick shout out for Francis Howell High School coming up this Friday, the First Responders Night at Francis Howell High School, recognizing our police, fire, EMS, and other first responders. Also if you notice in board docs, we have a donation listed tonight in the information section, and I'd like to call out that that's from a student at Cosley. So very excited about recognizing some students in our district that are reaching out and supporting our district in many different ways. That student held a lemonade stand that brought in quite a bit of funding that she's donated. So that's a couple of things that I'd like to mention this evening. Does anyone else have comments they'd like to share? Mr. Wright.
You and Mary stole part of my glory, but I'm going to go back to
Ladies first.
Ladies first. That's what happens. The MSBA convention was a great time, but Shelley Parks made us very proud. She spoke, and she spoke eloquently of the teachers, the staff, parents, the administration, the board. It was very well received and very well done. I also want to piggyback on the recycling event. Susie and I thank you. A lot of junk is out of our house. We also enjoyed the alumni trivia night. I had a great opportunity to visit the Daniel Boone and the Harvest Ridge PTAs. They had great meetings, and I was very impressed with everything they do for the children there. Also like to put a little plug in for our PALS. I can't think of what it means, but our PALS group, which is our early childhood PTA, they are quite active, and I was able to participate with my 16-month-old grandson at their Harvest Hoedown. He loved it, and we're going to the pumpkin patch next week. So I really commend them for everything they do for us. The last thing I have is to wish my wife a happy 38th anniversary. Put your calculator away, Kevin. She was 8, I was 10.
I think that's against the law.
All right, board. Any other comments? All right, next on our agenda is Board of Education requests. Is there any topics to bring forward for consideration? I see none at this time. Board, let's take a look at our upcoming meetings. Let's first look at the November 15th meeting. Is there any additions or movement on that schedule? Mr. Supple?
Mrs. Cope, I mentioned this previously, and I'm sorry that I didn't get it on the calendar here, but we will be bringing the bond refunding to the November meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Supple. Any other movement or additions? Okay. Board, let's take a look at our December 20th meeting. Any additions or corrections there? Okay. That's good for now. So before we adjourn, I would like to thank you for joining us at the dais this evening. Did you have any comments you would like to share? Push the button.
I guess just thanks for having me, really. I think it was a good experience to see what happens here, but glad I could add 0 comments.
But that's okay. Now you know what a school board meeting looks like, and you can go forth and share that message. But thanks for joining us tonight. Board, I'll entertain a motion to recess to closed session. Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mrs. Lang. By roll call.
Ms. Stiglich?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
8:30.